Thank you, everybody. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to welcome our viewers at home who are watching this evening via our live stream. Before we get started this evening, in line with state government restrictions, it remains mandatory for everyone to have signed in using the Safer WA QR code or hard copy register available at the front. I'll now proceed with the meeting. May I please ask us to stand and for Councillor Reid to read the opening prayer.
Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions, to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all time, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
And Councillor Boothman, could you please read the acknowledgement to country?
Thank you. On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect for elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. Please note that without prior approval, any recording of this meeting is prohibited. Members of the public should note that no action should be taken on any of the resolutions of council prior to written advice from the city being received. I will now declare the meeting of the 25th of May 2021 open at 7:01. There are no apologies for this evening. Is that correct, Mr. Blanchard? Thank you. We have one approved leave of absence. Mayor Mark Irwin granted leave of absence for 25 May 2021. Is there anyone else from the floor wishing to take leave of absence? No, thank you. 4 disclosures of interest. There are a number, so please bear with me. Mayor Mark Irwin disclosed an impartial interest in item 12.1 CF1 as he has met with several landowners and developers. Mayor Mark Irwin disclosed an impartial interest in item 12.1 PRSE1 as he is a bowler and honorary member of North Beach Bowls. Mayor Mark Irwin disclosed an impartial interest in item 12.1 PRSE2 as he played golf and attended functions at the Mount Lawley Golf Club. Councillor Joe Ferranti disclosed an impartial interest in item 12.1 PRSE2 as the President and Executive of the Mount Lawley Golf Club are known to him. Director Infrastructure Michael Littleton disclosed an impartial interest in item 12.1 PRSE2 as he is a non-playing member of Mount Lawley Golf Club. I also have a impartiality from Councillor Lagan regarding 12.1 DS1, the Inglewood Heritage Protection Area item, as he resides in the area. There is also another impartiality from myself on 12.1 DS1 on the HPA Inglewood Protection Area policy as I live and own property in Inglewood. Are there any others? Councillor Caddy.
Yes, thank you. An impartial interest in 12.1 PRSE1 as I'm a member of the bowling club.
Thank you. Please complete the paperwork. Councillor Thornton.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have an impartial interest in item 12.1 CF1, the Local Planning Scheme Amendment 114 and Herdsman Glendalough Structure Plan. Impartial interest there.
Thank you. Please complete the paperwork. And Councillor Ferranti, did you indicate previously? I will also declare an impartiality on the Herdsman Glendalough Structure Plan as I have met with proponents as part of that with the Mayor. Thank you. Petitions. I don't have any on the table. Are there any around the table? Neil, thank you. Responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice. All questions from the previous council meeting were published in the minutes of the meeting. Public question time. I will now move on. Thank you. Can I please... Apologies, one moment. Can I please ask Mr. James Markey to come to the lectern? If you can please press the button and you will have just your name and suburb, please, and you have 3 questions. Thank you. Oh, sorry, there's just a button on the bottom of the speaker.
Yeah, got it.
Perfect. So just your name and suburb, please.
Yeah, James Markey, Carrinup.
Thank you.
First question is, What action, legal advice has the council pursued in regards to prosecuting individuals and or companies of littering when unsecured rubbish is blown out of either skip bins and or rubbish piles on building sites or construction sites?
Thank you, Mr Markey. Mr Rodich?
Thanks, Madam Acting Mayor. Thanks, Mr Markey, for the question. The City have not sought any legal advice in respect to builders' rubbish being blown onto the adjoining street or adjoining properties. All verge permits issued by the City contain a condition which requires any rubbish and or loose material on the verge to be contained in a bin or within the fenced area. This condition then allows the City the ability to infringe the applicant should the site not be compliant in accordance with the verge permit conditions and kept in a good state.
Mr Markey, your second question, please.
Yep. Okay. Why doesn't the council provide technical data and or methodologies when requested of civil works conducted on Crown land where there arises an issue with the completed work adversely affecting another property?
Thank you, Mr Markey. Mr Rodich?
Thanks, Madam Acting Mayor. Mr Markey, I believe that you've been in contact with Mr Blanchard this afternoon. I'll take that question on notice and we'll provide a written response to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time, Mr Markey. I will now ask Mr Darryl Lynch to the lectern, please. Mr Lynch, if you don't mind stating your name and your suburb for the record. Thank you.
Darryl Lynch, Corrine. So my three questions relate to the proposal to change the name of the City of Stirling. So regarding the proposal to change the city's name, what actually will the council be voting on at the 8th of June council meeting?
Thank you, Mr Lynch. So in terms of that motion, it was put to council via an electors meeting. A resident raised it. The matter will be coming back on the 8th of June council meeting. So we will be considering the motion put forward by the resident, but we are unaware of what that report will contain at this time.
Second question. Will the ratepayers be consulted prior to any vote to change the name?
Mr Lynch, thank you for your question. There hasn't been any determination of changing the name at this point. It will simply be consideration of the motion of that resident put forward at the electors meeting. So it would be a bit preemptive for us to suggest that there will be any consultation or name change at this point. Thank you.
So that answer might make the next one moot. But anyway, will ratepayers be provided with information outlining the costs and ramifications of any proposal to change the name of the city?
Thank you, Mr Lynch. As mentioned, the next stage is the 8th of June council report. I suggest having a look on our agenda when that does come up and having a read of it, and you're welcome back here to ask more questions at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I will now ask Mr Paul Collins to the lectern, please. Mr Collins, if you can please state your name and suburb for the record.
Thank you. Paul Collins, Dianella.
Thank you.
Acting Madam Mayor, how many ratepayers voted in support of the motion to change the name of the City of Stirling at the recent annual electors general meeting?
It was unanimous.
That's not answering the question, Acting Madam Mayor.
I'm not here entering debate, Mr Collins, but in terms of the attendance on the evening, it was unanimous. Councillors, can I please ask for silence? Thank you.
Acting
It
Madam,
was unanimous. I'll take it on notice and we can provide you the numbers. Thank you.
So the council does have the numbers, but not at the moment.
Correct.
Okay. And you'll provide that in writing. Thank you. Acting Madam Mayor, in this, the first term of the City of Stirling's first ever elected mayor, and 2021 being our city's Golden Jubilee anniversary, do you support the proposal from the small number of electors at the general meeting to change the name of the City of Stirling?
Mr Collins, as you're aware, I can't preempt any decision of mine under the Local Government Act, and we will be determining the matter on the 8th of June. Thank you.
Madam Acting Mayor, the Premier of Western Australia was publicly lobbied to change the name of the Peel region in 2017 to coincide with the 183rd anniversary of the deaths in Pinjarra. The Premier rejected the name change outright, stating, I quote, "I'm not into changing the names of regions around Western Australia," end quote. Clearly the Premier correctly was not wanting to open a Pandora's box. Why are you so wishy-washy along with the Mayor and equivocal in your answer to such a question about changing the name of the City of Stirling?
Mr. Collins, I don't believe I'm wishy-washy, but unfortunately I cannot answer the question without the report presented in front of us, which will be the 8th of June. So should you read the agenda for the 8th of June, and if you have any other questions, happy to come and present some questions as you have tonight, and the discussion will be held that evening as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Ms. Butterworth, I note your questions, but there is a motion proceeding, so you're okay to hold on for a little bit. Thank you. Are there any other questions in the gallery from the floor? No? Okay, thank you. Applications for leave of absence. Are there any requests for leave of absence? Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Acting Chair. 22nd of June.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. Anyone else? Do I have a mover of that motion? Councillor Perkov, seconded by Councillor Ferranti. All those in favour? Show of hands, please. Unanimous, thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I have a mover and a seconder for the confirmation of minutes of the 11th of May? Councillor Hatton moved, Councillor Lagan seconded. Is anyone opposed? Okay, Councillor Ray, I'll put that to the vote. Please use your electronic. And that motion is carried with Councillor Ree voting against. Oh, Councillor Farrelly, can you please vote? That's okay. Thank you. I'll declare that carried with Councillor Ree against. Thank you. Announcements by the presiding member. I do have one. So if you can indulge me for a moment. At the Parks and Leisure Australia WA Awards of Excellence held on 12th of May 2021, the City of Stirling won the prestigious title of Park of the Year for the recently completed Beena Parkland in Balga. Beena Parkland was up against 7 highly ranked projects from across the state and will now represent WA within the Park of the Year category for the National Parks and Leisure Awards to be held in Sydney later this year. First initiated in 2014, Beena Parkland was developed with a strong community-driven approach and holistic consideration of how to deliver important health and wellbeing outcomes for the community. The parkland includes a skate plaza, junior and advanced BMX track, multi-courts, parkour area, regional playground, unique public art, formalised car parking, barbecue and grass picnic areas and public toilets. The parkland design was based on a strong community consultation, having won a high commendation by the Parks and Leisure Australia WA Awards in 2016 for exceptional engagement with the community and innovative planning approaches. The total cost of the parkland was $6.2 million, with Lottery West kindly contributing $2.34 million towards the overall project. The project was a true collaborative approach and effort by the City's Facilities, Projects and Assets, Parks and Sustainability and Recreation and Leisure Services team. Key officers include Cara Clifton, Shane Cameron, Crystal Hunter, Leon Crope, Paul Kellick, Perrin Papathosiou, please correct me if I'm wrong, and Natasha Vale. Natasha, who was a driving force behind the project initiation in 2013, is in the public gallery tonight, and thank you, Natasha, for all your hard work. I will now ask Councillor Sargent to come and present the award. And a big round of applause for the City. Thank you very much. And that is the extent of the announcements by the presiding member. Moving on to item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. There are nil. 12, reports and recommendations of committees. Councillors, I propose bringing item 13.1 forward, which is Lot 16, house number 10, Morley Drive, Short Hill, mixed-use development, State Development Assessment Unit development application. This item is a direct-to-council report. I have received a request from the applicant to make a deputation on this item this evening, as it did not go to a committee meeting. I therefore prepared a motion to allow the applicant to deputise. Do I have a mover of the motion put behind me? And Councillor Reid moved, second Councillor Thornton. Can I ask everyone to vote, please, electronically? Great, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Ms Butterworth, if you don't mind coming to the lectern, please. Just stating your name and your suburb for the record. Perfect. And you'll have 3 minutes. And following that 3 minutes, councillors may wish to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Amanda Butterworth. Our business is located in Subiaco. It's Allarding and Associates, and we're representing True North Properties, the landowner of 10 Morley Drive, Chewett Hill. And I also have Steve Douglas over to my left, who is one of the owners in True North Properties, here with me tonight. You may know the site at 10 Morley Drive. It contains a dated, dilapidated, 3-storey, cream-coloured flat-type building constructed around about 1960 on the corner of Main Street and Morley Drive. We first met with the city officers back in December 2018, wanting to develop the site with a 6-storey mixed-use development, not that dissimilar to what you have before you today. The officers were generally supportive of the proposal and outlined that it was generally consistent with the then draft Better Suburbs strategy. We then lodged a scheme amendment for the site in May 2019, but that hasn't been presented to council as yet for various reasons, and so we did decide, I just wanted to outline that we did go down the path of trying to amend the scheme in regard to this development proposal. We have a client here who wants to develop the site in accordance with the city's vision as outlined in the Better Suburbs strategy. We consider that the project will provide a benefit to the community in terms of both employment and an economic benefit. We've submitted the proposal via the SDAU because we have a landowner wanting to build a showcase development on a site that we consider is in need of urban renewal, and the development proposal is in accordance with the Better Suburbs strategy endorsed by Council in August 2020. We have not proposed a development that is against or far beyond Council's strategic vision. We've proposed the development that is entirely consistent with the strategic planning framework, and we simply found that we were experiencing delays in progressing with amending the statutory planning framework, so we opted to lodge the application through the SDAU process. The development is capable of being considered by the SDAU of WAPC under Part 17 of the Planning and Development Act, which allows consideration of an application that is not compliant with the statutory planning framework, but it must have due regard to the purpose intent of the scheme, proper and orderly planning, preservation of amenity, facilitating positive economic effects and relevant state planning policies. And we say that the application satisfies these matters. We understand that the officer's recommendation to WAPC is that the application be refused, and we understand that that recommendation is on the basis that the proposal does not meet the current statutory planning framework of the scheme. We acknowledge this, but Part 17 of the Act was introduced to encourage good development.
30 seconds.
Sorry?
30 seconds.
Thank you. To assist economic recovery through the pandemic, and we say that our proposal does this. We did forward to councillors today a recommendation, an alternative recommendation to note the development rather than recommend refusal. Alternatively, if council thinks that this is a great development, we'd respectfully request that you consider that council recommend to the West Australian Planning Commission that the application be approved subject to the list of conditions provided in attachment 1, and then you delete the remainder of point 1 and delete point 2. We thank you for your time, and both Steve Douglas and myself are available to answer questions, but we just respectfully request that you consider those two other options in addition to the recommendation put forward by council. Put forward by officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Butterworth. Appreciated. Councillors, are there any questions of Ms Butterworth? No? Councillor Spaniolo?
Thank you, Acting Deputy Mayor, or Mayor, should I say. Ms Butterworth, I wanted to ask the question in relation to what you're actually seeking is an amendment to rezone the current land. Is that correct?
There was an amendment that has been lodged, but that's not subject of the recommendation of this evening. Sorry.
So obviously under LPS 3, it obviously doesn't fit in with the current planning framework, but under LPS 4, which I understand is imminent in 2022, it's quite possible that this development would comply. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, I haven't seen the draft scheme, so I can't comment on precisely what's proposed within the draft scheme. So sorry, I can't answer that question beyond saying that it is consistent with what has been endorsed by Council in the Better Suburbs strategy.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spagnolo. Are there any other questions from the floor? No. Thank you, Ms Butterworth. Appreciated. I will now move on to item 13.1. Is there a mover from the floor? Councillor Thornton, what motion are you moving?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation on page 150 and refuse this application with an addition.
Sure, what was the addition?
Part F.
If the officers would like to put that on the screen, please. And if you don't mind just reading out Part F for the benefit of the councillors.
Sure. The application has failed to provide sufficient information to adequately demonstrate the development is a shovel-ready project.
Great, thank you. Do I have a seconder on this motion? Councillor Spagnolo. Is anyone against?
Question.
Councillor Lagan, is it a quick question? Like under 10 seconds? Go for it.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. My question is, what is the definition of shovel-ready?
I will allow, well, if shovel-ready is a determination by the Department of Planning as part of the State Development Assessment Unit. There's 4 triggers. There's no definition, but an applicant is to demonstrate that they can substantially commence within a 12, 18 or 24-month period. That's the intent of the shovel-ready notion. Councillor.
Can I just add to that question? Sorry. Does that inclusion act against the applicant? Is it an unfair inclusion?
It's actually a requirement under the Planning and Development Act. Now, as part of the SEAU process, there's 4 pillars and that being one. Mr Rodich, if you'd like to confirm or comment.
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, that's correct. I mean, the purpose of this unit and the establishment, I guess, of this planning pathway is to allow for development which may sit outside a planning framework, but does have an economic development benefit to the community and is ready to go now. It's not a pathway to propose developments that won't be constructed in the short-term period.
So, yeah, thank you. The reason I'm asking is in light of recent building company
Mr Lagan, maybe what I'd... Mr Councillor Lagan, apologies. There had to be one slip up this evening. I might let Councillor Thornton open, if that's okay. Councillor Thornton, as the mover, you may open.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe that we should support the officer's recommendation on page 150 and refuse this application based on its circumvention of orderly and proper planning conventions, site overdevelopment and unfounded assumptions of the future character of this local neighbourhood, which disregards the local contemporary context. While this development application is professional, well presented, and the renders often an alluring appeal with their lush tracts of greenery, if you scratch the surface you may see cracks. This development application heavily leans on the Better Suburbs strategy as a standalone planning instrument. Better Suburbs strategy is not a local planning strategy, and neither has it been recognised by the Commission. The Better Suburbs strategy is a planning strategy which helps to inform and guide land use and transport planning frameworks, but this must be in combination with other planning documents, such as any required local planning scheme amendments, preparation of local development plans and future zoning under the proposed City Local Planning Scheme 4. The Better Suburbs strategy was not developed in isolation for the sole purpose of development assessment. Yet this proposal is on a Class 1 activity corridor and can afford an increase in density, plus 6 stories with overshadowing of several neighbouring properties and minimal setbacks with no transition will have a detrimental impact on our surrounding amenity. It is stated in the application, the height of the development responds to the desired future scale and character of the street. Well, I dispute this. Here the applicant has assumed, as a result of the Better Suburbs strategy, the surrounding lots will therefore redevelop, ignoring many strata lots which have recent renovations done. The dominating local single-storey contemporary context should not be ignored. Lastly, we as a city support high-quality density development around appropriately identified centres and corridors, as we understand having strong residential catchments supports our centres as a vibrant, activated precinct. However, this development application proposes to circumvent all planning processes required to provide localised planning controls, and as such, we should agree with the officer's recommendation by rejecting this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. Councillor Spagnola, seconded. Do you have any comments?
Just briefly, if I may, Madam Acting Mayor. Look, I think it's all about process, and Councillor Thornton has hit the nail right on the head. We really need to follow this process. Look, I drive past this site every day, and I always wonder when it's going to be developed. And over the years, it's just been sitting there and sitting there. And I was very pleased about 12 months ago when the owners of the property or the developers came to council, explained that they were in a catch-22 situation. They didn't comply under LPS 3. They couldn't really wait for LPS 4, and that, you know, if they were to put an application up under the current scheme, that it wouldn't comply. And it made it very difficult. So we recommended to them at the time when they made these representations to us to basically come in and have a chat to the officers, which they did. And the officers gave them some advice. There was a lot of toing and froing. And to be perfectly honest with you, I was disappointed when I saw the recommendation, because I thought that something had come up that would A, please the community, and B, please the officers and the council of the City of Stirling. But it would appear, Madam Mayor, that it's not the case, and maybe it's not shovel ready. And maybe we do need to speak with the developers. Look, we all want to see this site developed, but we don't want to see overshadowing. We don't want to see setbacks that aren't appropriate. We don't want to see a building that's not going to harmonise with the rest of the neighbourhood. And I think this is what it's all about. And if we can address those issues, that's the way to go. I think at the moment, in its present form, the recommendation we have before us is appropriate. However, if it's decided that in the future the applicant wants to come back and address some of the concerns that have not only been pointed out by the officers, but certainly the community, well, then we can have another look at it. Look, there's no doubt that eventually there will be a development on the site. Whether it's going to be 60 apartments, as is being proposed, or whether it's going to be 30, I don't know. But it's got to harmonise with the rest of the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spagnola. Councillor Lagan, did you want to finish your line of questioning?
No, nothing to add.
Councillor Caddy?
Yeah, look, could I just get some clarification from the officers? Because I understand the recommendation is because the development is not compliant with LPS 3. But the argument, I guess, that was being proposed was that it is consistent with Better Suburbs. But there's some concerns have been raised about things like the setback and the way it integrates with the surrounding developments. So could I get some officer comment, please, on those particular aspects? Because I think what I'm hearing is that we would probably support 6 stories on this site, given its location. but concern has been raised about the setbacks and the way it integrates with the surrounding development. So if I could get some comment.
Mr Rodich.
Thanks, Madam Acting Mayor and Councillor Caddy. If you look on page 159 of the report, the third paragraph down, is quite clear that this proposed development does achieve most of the planning controls, the future planning controls for this area under the Better Suburbs strategy. However, these haven't been incorporated into the planning scheme at this point in time. At a point in time when they are, these provisions would have to go through a vigorous community consultation process. We'll have to come back to council to consider those submissions, and of course then be referred to the West Australian Planning Commission for final approval. So we're in, I guess, an early stage of the planning for the area, and the comments in terms of setbacks, I'm of the opinion that most of the details of this plan do comply with the future planning as proposed, but we're not guaranteed that will be the case. I mean, once we go out to consultation through local planning scheme number 4, there may be comments made by the community in terms of setbacks and how transition works between properties, and these need to be considered. So it's difficult to say at this point in time, will that be the framework which will be applicable to this site in the future. But as proposed, and as through the Better Suburbs strategy, this development would fulfil those future aspirations of the city.
Thank you, Mr Rodich. Councillor Caddy.
Yeah, further question. I note that the report says that consultation is the responsibility of SDAU. Have we been given any insight as to what that consultation results have been?
I actually asked a similar question before and was advised we haven't, but Mr Rodich?
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, no, we haven't been provided with any of the comments received during the consultation period. That's a matter for the SDAU to comment on, and that's very important because that is part of the planning assessment process to consider submissions made during advertising.
Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Sounds to me that this whole thing just a bit premature and they should wait another year or so before LPS 4 comes out. But my question was around F and the addition that was added. Could I get some comment around that? Is it shovel ready? Is it not shovel ready? Because it's said that it isn't, but can I just get some officers just to clarify that?
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. Mr Rodich? Or Ms Shears?
Thanks, Madam Acting Mayor. I'll try to answer the question. In terms of shovel ready, the applicant, as part of their submission, said that they would be ready to go to develop in October this year. That's the only detail they've provided. There's no further details we've been provided into, who may be the builder, what's the current arrangement with the tenants on the site. But they, in the applicant's submission, and this is a consideration of the State Development Assessment Unit, that they believe they were ready to go in October this year.
On that, Chair, I actually disagree with F then. We have the applicant stating that they are ready to go and council saying, you're actually not, yet I don't believe that is the correct statement. So I'll probably just on that alone will actually not support the refusal.
Would you like me to put F separately?
If you can put them separately, or I just don't believe that based on what Mr Roddick has said that we can actually say it's not shovel ready when the applicants say in October we're ready to go.
Councillor Sargent, just to provide some clarity on that, it's saying that they failed to provide sufficient information. Mr Roddick has identified they've made a statement they're ready for October, but haven't provided information around them being ready in October, so that's probably why the addition's been included. Is there any other comments around the table? So did you still want me to put that separately, Councillor Sargent? Okay. Back to the mover. Councillor Thornton.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to close by saying that the community is opposed to this particular development. They're not opposed to developing this site, and I just think it's a little bit premature to push this forward at this stage, and I just hope, well, I would like everybody to support this motion as it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thornton. That's closing the debate. I'll now put the item.
Nobody's foreshadowed.
Councillor Spagnolo, if you can please vote, and Perkov. Thank you. That motion has been put and carried 8-5. Councillors in support are Councillor Boothman, Ferranti, Hatton, Perkov, Rees, Sandry, Spagnolo and Thornton, and those against are Caddy, Farrelly, Lagan, Proud and Sargent. Thank you. Councillors, we will now move on to the Planning and Development Committee meetings items. No alternative motions were received by governance by midday today for these items. However, I note item 12.1 PRSE1 on page 123 and 12.1 PRSE2 on page 132 are required to be pulled out. Councillors, are there any other items? Councillor Boothman.
12.1 CF1.
On page 100, thank you. Councillors, any other items? No? Okay. That is already pulled out. 12.1 PRSE2 is already pulled out as it requires an absolute majority vote. Okay, thank you, councillors. I'll move to item 12.1 CF1 and I'll move to Councillor Boothman, who is the chair of the committee.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. There was a recommendation from Council. However, we did receive a memo this afternoon from Director Mr Roddick in respect to this item, and it's basically a recommendation for a deferral. The item CF1 Local Planning Scheme number 3, Scheme Amendment number 114 and Herdsman Glendalough Structure Plan Outcomes of Advertising be referred to the Planning and Development Committee meeting on the 15th of June 2021. And the reason for that is to provide sufficient time to prepare modified parking provisions under the Herdsman Glendalough planning framework for Council to consider.
Okay, thank you. I'll note that's a procedural, but I have been asked by the CEO to read out the item, which is Local Planning Scheme number 3, Scheme Amendment number 114 and Herdsman Glendalough Structure Plan Outcomes of Advertising. So on the motion put by Councillor Boothman, is there a seconder? Councillor Spagnolo. Is anyone against? Oh, it's a procedural, so I'll put that to the vote. Thank you. Thank you. That is carried unanimously. Moving on to item 12.1 PRSE1, sublease between North Beach Bowling Club Incorporated and Sand Volley Australia Proprietary Limited. Is there a mover of a motion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Boothman as the chair of the committee.
Yes, I've moved the committee recommendation on page 124. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Caddy. Is there anyone against? Okay, I'll put that motion. Councillor Farrelly and Councillor Boothman, can you please vote? Great, that item's carried unanimously. I'm now noting Councillor Migdal has just joined the meeting. Good evening. Moving on to 12.1 PRSE2, variation to lease to Mount Lawley Golf Club Incorporated over Crown Reserve 18325, lot 14684, house number 49, Homer Street, Inglewood. I'll refer to Councillor Boothman, the chair of the committee, and I'll also note the white paper received by councillors on Friday.
Yes, but also noting that the recommendation from committee was basically the same substance, but however Mr Blanchard's provided this one that the item be referred to a future meeting of the Planning and Development Committee to provide the city with further time to consider the proposed lease extension.
Thank you, Councillor Boothman. Seconded by Councillor Lagan. It's a procedure. I'll put that to the vote. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Boothman, would you like to move to the balance of reports?
Chair, I'll move the balance of the report.
Is there Councillor Proud seconding? Please vote. I'm moving too quick for the officers here. Councillor Ferranti? Councillor Ferranti, can you please vote? Thank you. Okay. Members of the gallery, please be advised that the remainder of the Planning and Development Committee recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution. Councillors, we will now move on to deal with the direct to council items, noting that we have already dealt with item 13.1. I'll move on to item 13.1, lot 16, house number 10. Oh yeah, we've done that one, thanks, yep. They were testing me, it's okay. Item 13.2, commemorative memorial and plaques policy on page 214. Councillor Ree, moving a motion. What is your motion?
Yes, please. It's a motion 4 weeks ago, but finally got to the table. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. That the item 13.2 commemorative memorials and plaque policy be referred to the Community and Resource Committee meeting to be held on the 1st of June 2021 to allow officers to collate the 4 different policies as shown in the 25th of May 2021 committee report to be incorporated into one policy include the following. The definitions. Council is to improve all memorials and plaques, all plaques to include a brief background, plaques for trees, register of all memorial plaques, etc., to be recorded by the City of Stirling website, recorded in the City of Stirling, the in got lost. 6, a pro forma form to be completed by applicants for submission. 7, an area should be set aside at various locations throughout the city for like a meditation garden. Brighton Road, Scarborough, Morris Hamer Park, Ronstone, Spoonbill Lake, Lake Gwillup, Corinne Regional Space and Millydale Way. And of course they could be subjected to change, but that was suggested by the officers. To allow the documentation to be easily followed, to address the concerns raised by the community and to acknowledge their friends and family irrespective of religion or culture.
Thank you, Councillor Ree. Is there a seconder of that motion? Councillor Farrelly. Is there anybody against the motion? Correct, thank you. I'll put that to the vote. You guys are making my life so easy this evening. Thank you. Perfect. Okay, that item is carried with councillors Boothman, Farrelly, Hatton, Lagan, Migdal, Perkov, Proud, Ree, Sandry, Spagnolo and Thornton in support, and against councillors Caddy, Ferranti and Sargent. Okay, moving on to item 14.1, notice and motion, Councillor Keith Sargent, Seniors Watch, on page 235. Councillor Sargent, as it's your notice of motion, do you have a recommendation?
Thank you, Chair. I will move the recommendation on page whatever it is. 235. Thank you, Chair. Oh,
I think it's
236, actually.
236. Yeah.
236.
Thank you.
And this just obviously just forms part of the deep dive review that they're going to do this
Great,
year.
thank you. Is it Councillor Migdal seconding? Is there anybody opposing? No, I'll put that to the vote.
Look, I just have a question.
Sorry. Councillor Farrelly, if you can please stand. Is it a quick question?
Yeah, just a quick one. Are we presuming this is part of
sorry, through the chair.
Through the chair, sorry, actually, Madam Chair. Is this seen as another set of officers to, or is this part of the process of the people?
Councillor Farrelly, we can't preempt the decision of the deep dive review, but this is simply putting the matter as a consideration as part of the deep dive review for community services.
Right, so it's just another addition to what the community services...
No, so the community services will be having a deep dive review undertaken, and this will be a consideration as part of that. So whether it warrants other services to warrant this, or whether it's an add-on, whether it's a replacement, that will be up to the deep dive review, which councillors will review and will ultimately come back to council.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thanks. You. Is there no other comments? Okay, I'll put that to vote. Thank you. And that is carried unanimously. Item 15, notice of motion for consideration at the next council meeting. Councillors, are there any notice of motions for next council meeting? No? Great.
Yes,
sorry, Councillor
actually,
Farrelly.
sorry.
Sorry, I didn't see you. Apologies.
Notice of motion in regard to the baby.
Councillors, just a bit of quiet, please.
Through you, Madam Chair. My notice of motion is that in regard to the bay beaches, that there be rubbish bins there for the disposal of. Currently, a lot of smokes are being left behind at the beaches, and also some syringes. So we need something more safe than a normal bin.
Councillor Farrelly, is this a motion that was prepared previously, or is this?
No.
Is this something that you've raised with the officers before?
No.
May I suggest maybe putting it to the officers first, and then if you aren't having any success, then bring it to the next council meeting as a notice motion? Would that be okay?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
I get your drift.
Yeah,
Thank
okay,
you.
thank you.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, moving on to item 16.1. Questions on notice. Councillor Elizabeth Reid, commemorative memorials and plaques. I really cannot pronounce that word. They are noted. 17, new business of an urgent nature. There is nil. 18, matters behind closed doors. There are nil. And I now declare the meeting closed at 7:46, and you're welcome. Bye. And goodbye to the viewers. Thank you.